Well, welcome everyone. This is the Peak Careers Consulting interview, and we're going to be interviewing and talking about boomers in the workforce and why we really need a mindset change on this from really society in general. This is a follow-up to a blog I wrote that you could check out if you follow that bit.ly. So Peak Careers Consulting, I've been offering the Facilitating Career Development course since 2000. It was oftentimes known sort of commonly as the CDF class, but it's actually the Facilitating Career Development course. And people can take that course and end up applying for two different certifications, either the GCDF or the CCSP. And there's more information on that on my website. I also provide a monthly newsletter for career practitioners, do individual career counseling with wide variety of people from college age to boomers, and then offer workshops for career practitioners on a wide variety of topics. A couple of the most popular ones are using card sorts, understanding transitions, happenstance, and then I also do LinkedIn trainings. The other big part of my business is offering online seminars. So these are discussion-based seminars. They're 4 and 5 week long. They come with 10 to 15 hours of recertification hours that are pre-approved from a credentialing agency, and they're discussion-based. So they're with other practitioners, and you log in. There's no set time to log in, and we have a variety of different topics that we offer through Peak Careers. So that's a little bit about me. Today, we've got Geoff Pearman, and he's the Managing Director of Partners in Change at Trans-Tasman Organizational and Workforce Development Consultancy. Over the past 5.5 years, Geoff has worked with over 90 companies in Australia and New Zealand, ranging in size from 34,000 employees to owner-operators, to assist them in addressing the challenges and the opportunities of age and work. Marc Miller is the co-founder of, he is the founder of Career Pivot, which helps those in the second half of life design careers that they can grow into for the next 30 years. Marc has authored the book Repurpose Your Career, a practical guide for the second half, which was published this spring. And he didn't include this, but I'll say it. I love his podcast, the podcast that you do on Repurpose Your Career. I really do enjoy that, Marc. And welcome to both of you.
Thanks very much.
It's great to be here.
So,
good to be with you, Jim.
And what's interesting is Geoff is currently in New Zealand. That's where he lives and works. And Marc is actually a Texas boy, but is in Mexico actually as we're speaking. So anyways, I want to talk about what do businesses need to do to change how they think about workers who are in their 60s as they're sort of facing this sort of time of a lot of boomers leaving the market. Geoff, you want to talk about that, please?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I'd open up around with that discussion, Jim, is to say that not all businesses are the same. And I think that's what we've got to be very careful about, that there are some companies who are embracing the opportunities that are there with people as they age at work. They're probably a small minority. There's a group of companies who don't know what to do and are confused by it. And there's others where you'll find them struggling, and probably that's where you'll probably see examples of discrimination and older workers finding themselves excluded or managed out of the workplace. I think the first thing is to develop an awareness of what is actually happening demographically in our countries globally, and to recognize that people now in their 50s and 60s are not doing life like their parents did. We're now living a good deal longer, probably 20 years longer than what we did 50, 60 years ago. I think at the age of 50, the question I often ask people is, think about at the age of 50, what do you want to be doing for the next 20 years in terms of work? At the age of 60, you may be only 2/3 of the way through. What's the next third of your life about? And I think employers need to recognize that we do have this new life stage, 50 through to 70, 75, and start talking with their employers about what's actually important to them and where does work fit for them at that stage in their life.
Yeah, I mean, and just not talking to them is sort of one of the problems, isn't it? I mean, it's this employers need to really begin to talk to these folks in that pre-retirement phase before they're actually saying goodbye.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think a couple of things on that, Jim. One is I actually don't use the word retirement in the work that I do. because I think that's a concept that's tied to the old models of thinking about life and lifespan. What I talk with people much more about is the next stage in their life.
Right.
And more and more people are constructing that really quite differently. But I think to come back to the conversation thing, often I'll sit down with employers and with managers, and they want to have conversations with their staff. They just don't know how to. They're afraid of offending. They haven't got a language to use. And then you'll sit with a group of older workers, and they'd love to have the conversation too. And I think somehow what we've got to do is bring the two together in a way that's respectful, a way that respects the fact that people are doing life quite differently, and look for solutions that are in there for them.
Mark, your thoughts?
It's what Geoff was saying is the fact that we used to believe in a 3-stage life, right?
Yeah.
Education, work, retirement. I take the fact that I don't ever plan to retire. I want to work less at something I enjoy on my terms. And it's interesting, right now I am forming a online community, and I'm asking my initial cohort, what do you want? And what they all want is freedom. They don't want the grind anymore. They want to do something that they enjoy, and they want to do it on their terms. And so that's a workforce now that is flexible and available. You know, many of these folks have children to care for, or more importantly, parents to care for, right? You have obligations. And by the way, most of us are just flat sick of the grind. And I don't want to work as hard as I used to. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Right? But I don't want to stop working. So, and it's okay, how do we build this new life, this new work life, as we go into our 60s, 70s, and sometimes even 80s, where we are still viable? I mean, today, I forget the statistics, one of my insurance guys gave me, that if you're a married couple in 65, there's like a 90% chance that one of you will live to 100.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're 65, what are you going to do for the next 35 years? You're going to play golf every day? I don't think so.
I mean, it literally is a second adult lifetime that is it's handed to us now. You know, I mean, I've already lived, I've worked, I had a working life of 20 some odd years, but I'm 60, I could work for another 20 years. You know, I mean, what am I going to, think about your life in those segments. This is a whole new developmental stage that's available to people.
Yeah, the way I like to think about this is, think about when you were 18. You were asked to say, God, you got to pick a career, which for guys at 18 is really stupid because they're brain dead. But you're going to work for 30 or 40 years. Go pick something. Well, at that point, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what's available. Today, many of us who are in our 60s are going, okay, what do I do next? I don't know. I've got a blog post coming out tomorrow based on a gentleman in my community who's very mission-driven. He's ex-military. He was in the reserves for 30 plus years. And I told him, I said, don't find a job. Go find a problem to solve.
I like that.
Right? And that will lead to something meaningful, which hopefully also leads to making some money. But most of us need meaning and purpose. If you have no purpose in life, I don't care how much money you make, because you're not going to be happy. And
this is an opportunity. This is opportunity time, right? I mean, it's, before it was like I worked with somebody who was like, well, do you like your, he spent a lifetime in IT. And I said, well, what are you going to do when you get out? He goes, not IT. I hate IT. And so now it's a chance for him to really recreate it. I mean, it was a good living. He raised a family, and that was all good.
Yeah. Well, I've left tech.
I think one of the things that we've got to be thinking about is not just 60 on. I'm increasingly talking to people, come back into your 50s. Because once you get into your 60s, there's a few stereotypes get attached to you, a few more.
Yeah.
And my challenge really is, in your 50s, be thinking about what do you want to be doing for a work point of view for the next 20 years, and start shaping that at that stage. Don't leave it to your 60s, but if you do, then again, do it at that stage. But I think you're absolutely right. There's a writer who shaped my thinking a lot, a guy called Daniel Priestley from the UK. And one of the things he says is that vital people don't dream of retiring one day. What they do is spend their time thinking about what they can do, how they can do more of what they love for as long as they possibly can. And I think that's the mindset that we see. And I think the key to that quote is vital people. So when I talk to people who are in the workplace and dreaming of retiring, they want to retire from, they haven't got an idea of what they're going to retire to. Most often you find that they've become disengaged, they've become disenfranchised in the workplace, they've lost what you're talking about, Mark, that sense of purpose, that sense of drive and contribution that's so important, I think, to carry us the whole way through life, not just our working life.
Yeah, one of the good points you bring up, this is about running to something and not running away from something.
Absolutely.
The challenge is where very often when we run away from things, we run right to the same thing we ran away from.
Right.
And I'll use the example. I've been through 2 successful tech startups. I've left tech twice. And I joke on the second one, I relapsed. You know, and I don't want to do that stuff anymore. And the challenge comes down to is I didn't have something to run to. I went off. I had a major bicycle accident about 15 years ago. I hit a car head on at 50 miles an hour. And I went off to teach high school math and in inner city high school. Well, I suffered at that point from what I call MSU syndrome, make stuff up. I made stuff up saying, okay, this is my dream job. And the answer was, no, it wasn't. I made it up in my head. I did not do my homework. And it's actually saying, okay, what do I really want to do? And what's the reality behind it? Right?
One of the realities for me, Mark, was that, you know, I twice lost jobs in my late 50s. And I went to an outplacement agency. They said you could have 3 sessions, one on how to do a CV, one on how to do job search, and one on how to do interviews. And I said, actually, that's not what I need. And I then spent six sessions rethinking what was the contribution I wanted to make in the next stage of my life. But I did exactly what you said. I found myself applying for jobs like the 2 that I'd lost. And I think what that was about was saying to myself, actually, I can still hack it. I can still do it. I can proving to myself that it wasn't my problem that I was made redundant. And I sat back and said, actually, why do I want to keep doing more of that? I can do something quite different. And hence, that's what I'm doing now.
So I'm going I want to change gears here just a little bit before, but this one I really want. A lot of my community are career practitioners, people who are helping these midlife career changers. And I'm kind of curious, how do career practitioners help these midlife career changers? What is, because there's many of us midlife people still have a lot of value. So I'm curious, Mark, what are your thoughts on that? How do you start? Where do you start with that?
Okay. One, you have to understand that many of us don't know who we are. I claim as a baby boomer born in the mid-50s, my father served in World War II. My parents grew up through the Depression. I was raised to be an employee, to go work for a father-like company. That would take care of me. And after 30, 40 years, I would ride off into the sunset and retire. And 3/4 of the way through, they moved my cheese. And one of the challenges is most of us, when we started our careers, we became actors. We went to work and played roles. And by the way, we got paid to play those roles. And after 30 and 40 years, sometimes we actually think we are those roles. And I know for me, I am not. I did a lot of nasty stuff to myself. By the way, I made a lot of money. I was very successful. And I became someone who I was not. And it's going back and saying, okay, who are these people? And what do you really want to do? This is the same thing. You're 50 or you're 60, and you got the same decisions you had when you were 18, right?
Right.
What do I want to do with the next 20 years of my life? And two, things are changing so fast. We have creative destruction where things are being destroyed. I mean, I'm recording this. I'm talking to you over my iPhone, right?
But
right.
even
That
5 years ago, that would have been this would have been people would have said, you guys are crazy.
That's right. And by the way, we're doing this over a virtual free service over the internet.
Yeah.
And it's looking at, okay, what are the possibilities? Because one of the things I'm seeing in my own online community is people don't know. I like to say, they go, I can do that? What? I can do what?
Mm-hmm.
So there are all kinds of, so part of it is opening people's eyes to what the possibilities are.
Right.
And to be prepared to say, is my industry going to go away? Right? If by the way, if you are in retail right now, not a good place to be. Right? There's lots of industries that will be destroyed, and there will be a lot of opportunities that will be created.
Right.
And
Just
helping us. Yeah.
Just
go
like
ahead.
I mean, when they brought the car in, they thought the horses would live longer, and the horse and buggy would never go away. And the reality is that we still have horses around today, and they're still playing some kind of role. And it's not
Right.
it's not like the cars took away all the jobs; it created other opportunity. Jeff, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think I work closely with a couple of career practitioners, and I refer clients to career practitioners. But I guess the sort of career practitioner that I want to refer people to, and the one I found helpful, were those who actually understood what Marc's been talking about in terms of a whole new life stage. That life is no longer about what I call 20, 40, 10 plus. 20 years of education and training, 40 years of work, family, aspiring, getting ahead, and 10 years of the golden dream, which has now become 30. I think you've got a career practitioner to actually understand what this life stage is about, the fact that we are living it differently, we want to contribute in quite different ways, and to help people feel legitimate at that life stage and find for themselves what's important. While I say that I think it's important to be thinking about what the next 20 years of your life is, 50 plus, in terms of what you want to be doing, I think there's another question that sits in behind that, and it's not just what do I want to be doing, what's the contribution I want to be making, but who do I actually want to be as a person? And that's the discovery, I think, that sometimes hasn't happened for people until that life stage. And there's lots of other stuff going on around them in terms of family, partners, community, curve balls. In my late 50s, I lost 2 jobs, but I was also caught up in an earthquake in Christchurch. And all those sort of plans that you have just get thrown out. Health
Right.
can do to you. So I think part of it is actually helping you find who you are and what that core is and what gives you a sense of purpose and meaning.
Yeah, I was just at a conference. I presented at a conference this past weekend, actually, a boomer conference here in Maine called The Second Act. And I had everybody, there were 40 some odd people in my session, and I had all of them break into pairs and ask each other questions, and I had prompts and everything, but what do you want to be known for? What are your top 5 skills, or what are you most proud of in an accomplishment? And when we were processing that, one of the comments that came up was, nobody's asked me this question before.
Yeah.
No one's asked me, who am I, and what do I want to be known for?
Mm-hmm.
And to the point that you just made, both of you have made, and that is, this is an opportunity to say, what's next, and what am I really passionate about? What do I really?
Yeah.
How do I want to spend my time? And sometimes it's just a matter of asking.
Yeah. But I think there's 2 groups in there too, Marc and Jim, that I work with. And quite different comments. One will be the group who quite clearly have been socialized into a very strong professional identity, and with a sense of vocation and calling. And that can be nurses, it can be teachers, and they only ever describe themselves in career or in professional language. And one of the nice pieces of work is actually to work with them and help them find a way to talk about themselves quite differently that is outside the role designated language. I think the other group that I work with, which is much more challenging, is outside workers. So I do a lot of work with local government, and these will be outside workers. They could be tradies, people who in their 50s and late 50s, early 60s, the body starts to break down.
Right.
And many of them live with a tension of, this is what I've always done. They may not have done a lot of training. This is what I've always done, hard labor. If the body breaks down, what am I going to do? And I think that's a much more challenging group that career practitioners typically don't engage with, because they engage with people who are professionals. But there's a whole lot of people out there doing hard physical work whose bodies are breaking down in the late 50s and 60s that we need to be working with.
Most of the books that I have read on this topic are about professionals, highly educated professional people. There's so little information out there for the tradespeople and those people whose bodies are getting beat up, and they are a very different monster. There's no question about it. They have very different issues.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, it's interesting. I went off to teach high school math for 2 years, and I largely taught largely Hispanic kids who come from in poverty, and their worlds were very small. In other words, their world shrank. They couldn't see the possibilities. Now, similarly, I talked several years ago to a guy up there in Maine who was working in a nonprofit, and he was dealing with a lot of not tradespeople, but people being displaced out of manufacturing, who had been working in manufacturing for 20, 30, and 40 years. And the similarities were stark. In other words, they didn't know any different.
Right.
Everybody they knew was in manufacturing, was on the lines.
Yep.
And similarly, my kids who, particularly my freshmen, every adult they knew had a job. Not careers, but had jobs. And jobs stink. They were hard. So why do I want to go to school? Because I'm going to end up in a job. Right? Career? I don't know anybody who's got a career. And I said there's a tremendous similarity because their view of the world, coming out of the blue collar world, is very small. And it's opening the minds up, and that's hard.
Well, listen, I really am trying to keep these sessions to 20 minutes or so, and I feel like we could go on for another hour here. Maybe we'll do a follow up at some point. But so as we sort of think about, I guess, any last comments from you folks, either one of you, about sort of this topic of boomers and businesses trying to sort of deal with in many places, here in Maine in particular, there's more people leaving the workforce than are coming in, and that's a real problem. Any final thoughts from, I'll start with Geoff.
Yeah, I primarily work with employers, and through employers work with their employees. And one of the things I'm now saying to employers is engage in conversations with your people in their 50s, start talking with them about what their thinking is about the next stage in their life, and support them to make good decisions, but also make available to them independent career practitioners who they can step aside and have a think about the next 20, 30 years of their life.
That's great. Yeah. Marc, final thoughts there?
Yeah, one of the key things that Geoff brought up is you need to start thinking of this much earlier. I mean, I'm working with 2 clients who are 65, and both have seen their professional worlds destroyed. The fact that what they have done does not exist anymore. And that's happened in the last 5 years. So it's getting ahead of the game, is saying, where are things going? Yes, you need to plan it, and things are going to change. And if you want to stay viable, you want to keep working, you want to be interested, no one's going to do it for you. You're going to have to do it for yourself.
Hmm.
right? And that's not how I've been trained.
Well, listen, thank you both very much for giving up some of your time and also sharing a lot of your wisdom. If people would want to read the blog that really sort of inspired this interview, that's the bit.ly is right there. And if you're a career practitioner of any sort, if you're a person that provides career services at any sort, you can sign up to get my top 10 tips for working with an undecided person at my website. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and any of those other social media sites. And I just want to say thank you both very much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks very much, Jim. It's been great to talk with you and Mark.
That's great. Thanks. Thanks, both of you.